most of humanity, this underground earth network defies the imagination. I realize when I say things like there's over 10,000 DUMBs, deep underground military bases worldwide, and over 100,000 miles of tunnels, that it boggles the imagination and the comprehension.
Yes.
So that being said, where would they get the manpower? In the US alone, there's 800,000 kids missing every year since the 40s. So there's great, great, great grandchildren that have been born into this all their lives down there, like the pictures of children. I don't know if you have those, the ones I sent, Rick, but that are coming out of the dumps in New York. I also have reports of that occurring in several other cities with MASH tents, where the MASH tents have to be set up close to the tunnels. And so, because of that reason, is for that these kids can't be transported very far. They're so fragile, and it has to be done at night because that's why it's not being seen much. They're going in there with night vision for two reasons: cover, and then also because the kids can't come out in the light of day. They've never been in the light of day for most of these kids ever. They've been in cages and being shocked and brutalized all their lives. And the ones that are older that have been gone into the Mark Ultra programs, used as slave labor down there, etc. The money for all this is really simple. And that's the slave trade, due to what I just mentioned. And children and trafficking and drugs and all that. They have a massive budget, plus the trillions, like $23 trillion missing from our budget that was never accounted for. They took out the information on that when they took out Building 7 and that part of the Pentagon, like I mentioned earlier. So, as I mentioned, Project Mark Rand is the dumb alternative 2 in the book, or excuse me, alternative 3 in the book by Leslie Watkins. If you get that book, it's to build deep underground military bases so that they have a place to hide when they were going to do what they were going to do, so that they could then wipe out us and be down there until the radiation and everything settled and everything was brought under control up here, and then have all their food and stores and beautiful places to live down there with holograms that makes it look really beautiful, like you're above ground and all that. And they had seed banks and energy systems and water systems and hydroponics and everything they needed, and seed banks to come up and replant the earth and everything. That was their plan. It was for the Illuminati, for the elites. It's not for us. We don't have a ticket. It's like George Carlin said: it's a club and you're not in it. So yeah, that's the case with us. Alternative 2 is primarily done by technologies developed by Mark Rand of the Rand Corporation and the Rand family, which is one of the big bloodline families. And within the United States, the 1,400 I found out is way low. It's actually 10,000 worldwide. I know of the information saying there's 288 DUMBs in the U.S. They've been building 2 a year. And so the ones listed here, although I know of 288, I'm not going to report on ones I'm not sure of. So this will just be the ones I'm sure of. So the average depth of the bases is 4.25 miles underground, and each dumb base costs roughly between 17 and $26 billion to build. As I said earlier, that's funded by drug money from the MI6, the CIA, as well as human trafficking, things like Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and the Clinton Foundation and all these big families and all the movie stars as well. Each underground base employs 10,000 to 18,000 workers. Again, those are slaves. They've been down there all their life. They're all Mark Ultra from the day they're born.
Wow.
They use
a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got millions of people, because if you do the math, if they're only keeping 400,000 a year from the U.S. that they're taking, because they need to have their adrenochrome and that stuff, and we multiply that out, we're saying that that's from 1945 that they started doing that, which is actually earlier than that, but it hit that number by 1945, which is 75 years that they have 400,000 kids a year for 75 years.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you said, 10 years, 450,000 kids. for 10 years, that you've been taking them for 10 years, then you would have 4.5 million people down there. But now you got to multiply that by at least 3 times that. So you've got literally 10, 12, 15 million easy. So the primary tunnel boring unit used is called a subterrane. It rhymes with submarine. They're nuclear powered now. There's a picture of one there. You can see how big these are. This is actually a very small one. This is a photo of a United States Air Force tunnel boring machine at Little Skull Mountain, Nevada in December of 1982. Here's a bit larger one.
Wow. It's about triple or maybe 5 times the size.
Yeah. Here's one's getting assembled to go in.
Look how long that is, Gene. That's just crazy.
A lot of these are actually brought in by railways, you can see here.
Mm-hmm. That's a big boy too.
Yeah. Smaller one again. Here's one down in a dome.
Called boring machines, right?
Yeah. Very small one.
Interesting. I've never heard of that company.
These are the older ones, very, very old tech. Mm-hmm. The new ones are nuclear powered and fusion powered. And they actually use the rock as a lot of the fuel for powering the device. And then the remainder of the rock is sealed as like a magma tunnel is. So the subterrane's melting penetrator head can be any shape desired. The cost is about $850 million in 1970 dollars. The unit does rapid excavation by rock melting, uses molten lithium pumped through a small nuclear reactor and circulated through an annular melting penetrator, reaching temperatures of 1,570 degrees Kelvin, melting through a ring of rock in front of the machine. The motive power to push the subterrane through the ground is provided by gravity. Patents on boring machines. So those that say that I'm making this all up, here's the patents from the U.S. Patent Office with the date of the patent. You can go look these up.
You have links to them all as well.
Mm-hmm.
You want me to go to any of those?
Yeah, just page through so people can free copy it if they want and go look up the patents. So these drills and systems they use are mostly now they use nuclear powered, that use fusion, that melt their way through the rock. You use some of that material, a lot of it for fuel for the system, and then the rest is made a smooth glass-like covering around the tunnel. And as I was, not only do these systems have massive seed and hydroponics and cities that are beautiful for them with animals and birds and plants and everything like that. So it looks like you're above ground with hologram skies. This black budget currently consumes $1.25 trillion per year. And the dumb project, scroll up please, Rick, consume 90% of this black budget. So you know, that's a lot of money. You're talking over $1 trillion a year. Mm-hmm. Alone just to build them. So they have the funding, that's for sure. There are approximately 50 ways tunnels and underground facilities are dug and formed, which include high pressure continuous water jet, low pressure water jet, percussive water jets, electric drills, turbine drills, pellet drills, spark drills, explosives, hydraulic rock hammers, lasers, electron beams and particle beams, forced flame, nuclear, as I mentioned earlier, the nuclear powered boring machines. They'll often have a little tiny boring machine they drop from the surface. It digs a little tunnel all the way down that they can drop a nuclear bomb down, a neutron bomb, which once it detonates, you have a big, huge cavern. They just wait for it to cool and go in there, bore into it from the side, go in there. There's no residual radiation from a neutron bomb. It's all neutron radiation. And then once that's done, and it's cool, they go in and put in the infrastructure. So there's many various methods. So primarily categorically stating them, you have the mechanical types such as the water cannon, the thermal types such as lasers, atomic fusion, particle beams, etc. Chemical types such as the dissolver that dissolves rock, the nuclear powered systems such as the subturns. subterranes, which rhymes with submarines, so you can remember it. It's kind of my thing. I'm submariners. I was in submarines for 20 years. So the nuclear subterranes build tunnels 40 feet in diameter as they work through the rock. It's, as I described before, making that glassy lining, and they fully filter the air as they go, so they have fresh air supplied to them. They literally make air from the rock as well, because rock does have air in it. And then the underground facilities have fuel and storage units and air conditioning, water reservoirs, dining, medical, full cities, and all the things I mentioned before, the movies, TV, massive computers, DNA storage. And this is an amazing picture that Jay found of a dome up in Canada.
It's a pretty big entrance, isn't it?
That was pretty good stuff, huh?
It's at least, what, 60 feet?
Yeah, if you consider the guys would probably be with the gear around 6 feet tall. You definitely like 10 or so of them stacked up if they stood on each other's heads.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. The New World Order is in the final stages. They were until Trump came along. The final stages of their satanic plan to reduce the current world population by 80 to 90%. You know, as we know with the Georgia Guidestones as well, which I have in a previous decode. If it weren't for Trump, most of us would not be listening to anything right now, except if you're rescued in Christ, you would be listening to the angels. So more than 3,000 people have been killed for trying to expose what occurs in these underground bases. It's basically a death sentence when you get too close to the New World Order's plans. A centerpiece of these plans lies in the more than 1,500 ground military scatter bases worldwide. And on that, I want to say, this is what he knows. That's his clearance level. I know of over 10,000, so it's way more extensive. He's at about 10%. Okay, this network of underground bases houses, conceals non-human life forms with incredible powers, as well as warehousing sophisticated superhuman mind control technology, advanced military weaponry, weather manipulation technologies, and much more. And there's an underground facility, and that's DIA, actually.
Is it really DIA?
That one's really DIA. That's
wow. So I imagine that's is that the ground, or do you think it's even further?
Yeah, that's a louvered system that they can open up. That's, if you're riding on Frontier or on the Frontier runways and you carefully look around, you'll be able to see that like a metal kind of beigeish louver covering that they can open and get light down into that 80-story building.
It's obviously circular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They build it like a silo because circular's, of course, the strongest shape.
Yeah, this looks like elevator potentially here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Most people, including most of the so-called patriots, are sincere about defeating the New World Order, but they are really looking in the wrong direction. So I started with the dumb decodes because they're looking everywhere but beneath your feet. The need to uncover and expose and alert the people of the world to what is going on below this surface is extremely important. And the only person I saw doing that was Thomas on True Reporting. Had a little nice little piece he did a little bit, like I think it was about June of the last year. So I did this in October, the first one I did.
Mm-hmm. Another picture of a underground base.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I wonder, it looks like this pretty old computers, but it's like a ton of them. Look at how many there are. It's like, wow.
On both sides, actually.
Yeah.
All North American DOMs are connected, and actually now the operative term is we're connected through a highway of tunnels. They travel on what are called maglevs for short, or magneto-leviton trades manufactured by Krupp Germany, the Krupp company, which is owned by the Krupp family, which is now under house arrest. And one has been given lethal injection, one of the younger ones. air is vacuumed from these tunnels to eliminate wind resistance. Thus, it's a vacuum, in other words. And due to the magnetic propulsion system, these trains are capable of speeds well above Mach 2. So you can see here what you have. It's on a support system, and it actually is often, for example, when they go between plate boundaries for the ones that went under the oceans, they will be encompassed within a field that's known as a warp field, so such that the magma and things like that and the continental movement don't affect them. They literally, the field changes as the continent plate boundary changes. And so the trains go in each direction, one on one side, one on the other side, and sometimes even one below and one above. They might have smaller for more shorter distances where they have shuttle trains. And then
so this could be like a shorter distance when these are the longer distance ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they're anchored in place so that, and those are giant element 143, 135, and other elements that are able to move with the movement of the earth if there were an earthquake or something like that.
All right. Wow. This is so this talks about maintenance shaft, main tunnel section, magnetic track, emergency track, anchor tether. What's that? Do you have any idea? I guess this is a big anchor to hold it in place.
Yeah, that's what I was describing. It anchors it into the bedrock below it, and it makes it, excuse me, able to move if there were
earthquakes or whatever. Like I got you. And that's the magnet levitation and a power supply of some sorts down below, huh?
And that's usually they use a free energy power supply, either that, and it's also super conductive.
Okay.
So you can read through that, Rick.
Boundary for stationary equipment, clearance envelope, it says. I know what the 5750 and 6060 and the 5500 are. Okay.
That's height in feet.
That's how many feet it is. Wow, that's pretty big, isn't it? Okay, guide surface, space for position deviations and guideway tolerances, reference to the space curves. So there's this space curve there. And down here it's 2,850 feet. Center to center distance, overall width clearance, space for guideway beam. It's a guideway boundary. Boundary for kinetic clearance requirement for the vehicle. Interesting. Those are four separate. There's another picture. I don't think these are LEV trains that had to be built.
They put this in here, which is really excellent. This was actually a system that was under Manhattan and New York. But just to give you an idea from the diagram we just looked at, what an actual one looks like.
This is one that's obviously being built or something?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Many of these bases are actually underground cities for beings that have lived there for millennia. These royal bloodlines and other critters.
That looks like water, isn't it? Is that the reflection?
Polished floor.
Oh, okay. So it's a polished floor. Okay.
Hydroponics bay.
Interesting. What would you say again?
The hydroponics bay for growing food and plants.
Ah. Wow. So they're using something besides direct sunlight, aren't they?
Yeah.